Hello and welcome. I am the Restless Kaiser, and I am over here.
I'm Woolly Mike, and I'm down here.
I'm James Workshop, and I'm here too.
And I'm Pete from Geekster Gaming, and I'm up here. Woo!
But together, we are a modeling
for
advantage. Welcome to the live show, ladies and gentlemen. We got Rich John in the comments. We got Nick from Team Clueless Games, and we got Gary Saffon69. Axe and Axe, as ever, is going to catch us in the future. See you in the future. Dwayne from Plastic Hack Gaming. What is the crack, mate? Alad here, keeping up the Welsh stuff. My son, I don't know if I mentioned before, my son has autism and is almost nonverbal, but he started to watch programs on S4C and insists that the names of the characters are now different because it's all in Welsh. There you go. It's like he doesn't speak very much, but now half of what he says is Welsh. Like, oh, great. We're not getting very far here. Tony Holton is here. Rich John is there. Hello. I think they've already done him once. Bob Edwards, good morning. Raining down in New Zealand. We've got snow here in the UK, mate. And life grinds to a halt because we don't get enough of it, so we're not equipped to deal with it at all.
Mentally or physically.
Exactly. Subs is here. Lazy Parrot Painting, evening all. Drink a Lemsip every time they send land or untap. There you go. That's his game for the evening. And Solvent Abuse UK. All right, that's the comments. Hobby-wise, tonight I am going to paint the rifles on this 15mm British infantry for Flames of War. Mike, what are you up to?
Well, obviously a bit of a standing because poor Johnny B's a little bit under the weather tonight. So my evening was actually sitting down reading a new rule set that arrived from Kaiser today.
Ooh.
In preparation for a road trip on the weekend. So not really hobbying, but trying to read a new set of rules. Bit of a spoiler there as well. So up and coming.
This evening, in honor of our guest, I get to spend the evening putting these cards into these decks. Other than that, going great.
52 card pickup, or is it 60 cards?
112 card pickup. It's all right. It's all good. What are you up to this evening, Pete?
I have been sleeving my new Pioneer deck, and much like you're about to do, making some changes to my own Commander decks in preparation for some play later this week, hopefully.
Very nice.
I'm sleeving up a new deck for a game that's not Magic, so we won't talk about it.
Okay, cool.
Oh.
Yeah, we won't talk about Flesh and Blood.
Flesh and Blood?
Okie.
All right, then. So, I went straight to the paintbrush, which was foolish. Pete! Friends of General Hager's just joined us. Ahoy there, sailor. So, Pete, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and all that kind of thing.
Okay, so in a nutshell, my journey started about sort of 4 years ago, where I was taken on as a co-owner of a shop that was here in Luton, a local gaming store that sadly doesn't exist anymore. But out of kind of the ashes of that rose the fire of what I'm doing now, which is Geekster Gaming. So we run events for all kinds of hobbies. So whether it's Warhammer and miniatures games like yourselves, Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Flesh and Blood, White Sports, anything. Monopoly, chess. People can bring down whatever they want to do. People rock up with their knitting and have a cup of tea if they really want to. They can come and do some crochet. The whole point is just to kind of grow a community of people from all kinds of hobbies and all walks of life. So that's where my focus has been since about April this year. And that's what I've been dedicating myself to doing is providing that for the existing community and growing that community wherever I can.
You mentioned crocheting, and you're not actually joking either, are you?
No.
I've seen Haley doing a bit of crocheting between games of Magic.
Absolutely, keeps your fingers warm.
Yeah, absolutely. So this we're going to talk a bit later about Magic, because I think I mentioned to you before the show, I think for a lot of the people that watch the show, they maybe did Magic a lot of years ago, or when they were early in the hobby and kind of moved before they moved on to other things. And then for a whole bunch of other people as well, like, you know, I know James probably currently and Willie Mike in the past, it's a bit of a side hustle. It's like they do a range of different types of gaming. So, and I was conscious we'd never talked about Magic on the show, so I think we'll do that a bit later. But why don't you tell us a little bit about this this games that you have? Because it strikes me that it's the kind of thing that if you live in a community where there isn't like a really big established gaming club with a lot of space, they could do what you're doing, right? What you're doing isn't rocket science. It's just one man's energy building a community.
Absolutely. You know, at the core of it, I rent a hall and I put out tables and chairs, and then the people who come along to the events are the ones who fill that hall with whatever it is that they're doing, whether it's, like say, whatever games it is that they're playing, whether they're role-playing games, whether they're card games, miniatures games, you know, whatever it is they're going to do. And you're right, absolutely. It's not rocket science. It's just the energy and the commitment from one person to take the reins and actually provide that. Some of it is about time and management of that. Some of it is a little bit on the financial side, because obviously there is a cost implication for things like the rent of the hall. But ultimately, yeah, anybody could do this. You know, if you're living in a town or a village or wherever you may be, that you don't have a local gaming store, as long as you can find a space that's willing to let you use it, you know, we can do this anywhere. I hear stories of people who go to pubs, play Magic in pubs, and you know, people go to cafes and all sorts of things like that. You know.
You say Magic, Dwayne from Plastic Crack Gaming. I think the Irish guys in Dublin meet in a pub. They play BattleTech.
Yeah, I know not too far from here. You know, there's a shop over in Bedford, and quite a few times I've seen, you know, for whatever reason, if that shop's not open, the guys just decant to the pub across the road and go and play in there instead.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Nice.
Well, I suppose that's the beauty of a card game being small and portable, as opposed to, you know, carrying around you know, thousands and thousands of points of army like you guys need to do for Warhammer.
Loads of tables get cleaned.
Yeah.
Salt and pepper pot scenery has been done a few
trying to make
times.
the day, so try and make the day available for everybody, basically. So whatever it is they want to do, you know, so people can rock up and do art, and like genuinely, it was not a joke when I say things like people come and have crochet and you know, and anything at all. There's just a friendly, welcoming, non-judgmental space for anybody to come and do whatever activity it is that they're interested in.
As long as it's PG.
Yes,
when you say any activity, it's not like there's no dogging going on, for example.
No, okay.
So, you know,
family friendly and loosely gaming orientated, but yeah, and free tea and coffee. Like, who could argue? So
I know the group I used to be in tried booking the church hall, and that was frowned upon by the church elders, because what we were playing, it wasn't.
I did have to have a bit of a discussion with the lady from the church, and yeah, I had to assure her that it wasn't anything untoward. You know,
just Dungeons and Dragons, nothing demonic at all.
Yeah. Summoning creatures and spells.
Yeah. No, they were all fine with all that, as long as it wasn't gambling. That was the only thing they had a strict rule on. That you're not allowed to, so no playing cards for ante. You're not allowed.
They'll have their bingo and their raffle in the church hall after.
Yeah, no gambling in a house of God. Bingo on a Wednesday, right? So you've got some slides, I think, Pete. Shall I put them up and you can talk us through a little bit?
Yeah, let's go for
it. So if you live in Bedfordshire, Hertfordshire area,
that's the end. But we'll go backwards.
That's the end. Yeah, your slides, or shall I whiz back to the beginning?
Oh, spoilers!
Spoilers!
Yeah. So this is the hall. So this is what we do in January, February, March. This will be every other Saturday that we're doing this. And as I say, like you say, I just put the facilities out and people come and fill it with whatever they're wanting to do on that day.
So I can see looking at. I mean, there's a lot of magic goes on. There's no escaping that. And that's your great love, isn't it?
For me personally, yeah.
I'm not sure I've seen you play anything other than Magic.
I do, absolutely do. I do know how to play Yu-Gi-Oh! I did have a little dabble with it. It wasn't quite for me, but I do know roughly how to play it. I've played a little bit of Flesh and Blood.
A lot of board gaming. I've seen you over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. Board games I'm always down for something, particularly if it's a big in time investment board game. Things like Firefly. Like absolutely, my most favorite board game is Firefly. And an anime based card game called Weisschwarz is what I've actually just started playing. That one I said earlier about sleeving up a new deck. That's what that was for.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I'll basically give almost anything a go. Like you know, if it's the game, chances are it's going to hold some of my attention. But it's definitely true that after almost over 20 years of actually playing Magic, that is always what draws me back, and that is my mainstay, and that is my great love in the gaming community is for that game. Yeah.
Right. Just catch up with the chat because Johnny B's not here. People probably noticed that, but I hadn't mentioned. John is like, you know, coughing and liquids are coming out of all the holes in his body, so he's not up for it tonight. Dwayne says they use a free function room of a pub, and it's free. I don't know whether that's because they get through a lot of liquor while they're there, though.
Probably
different people have different views on drinking and gaming. I'm all for it myself, especially if the other guy's drinking more. But I like to win. Yeah, and Bob Edwards says that the local scout hall is another option, of course. Yeah, these spaces, they do exist. So, yeah, but there's a few other games, and I know that like some of the Warhammer Fleet people and so forth can turn up. Yeah, and look, women play games too, as you can see.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, more than just a couple. You know,
yeah,
they and a variety of them as well. You know, like yourselves. You know, the people branch across multiple games.
All right, they're your slides, Pete. Can you not move it forward?
Yeah, I have. I've just changed it now. I just switched it back. We'll keep going. Oh, there we go.
So are your tournaments supported by Magic? So you get the prizes and that? Yeah.
Yeah. So we have pre-releases and drafts. You know, I get the product, I get the promos, you get the pre-release kits. You know, all of the good level of price support. That's all still endorsed by Wizards. I try and coincide these events with releases and release days and pre-release and things like that, depending on the availability of the church hall. Sometimes it works. Sometimes we have to wait a week, but you know, it still gives people the opportunity to do it. Sometimes, you know, waiting a week is better than not doing it at all. So
one of the types of players of Magic is the person who waits for the pre-release to come round, plays that, and then quits for 3 months, and then comes back again for the next pre-release.
There's definitely a couple of faces that I only see every sort of 12 to 14 weeks or so. Yeah.
So let's just say, right, you mentioned it twice. So to the uninitiated or to the old-fashioned, pre-release. So obviously, I know what those words mean, but you obviously implied that in Magic that's quite a big deal. So talk us through that a little bit.
Okay, so a pre-release is your chance to get your hands on the product an entire week before its actual release day. So anybody who comes along to a pre-release event, not only do you get to get your hands on cards early, but you get to play them in a tournament. Usually, the ones that I run, I do them at kind of a casual level, but they do vary. Where you get given 6 booster packs of the cards for you to then open and build a deck from, and then play against everybody else who has also come along to that tournament. So it's got a little bit of random chance to it because you have no idea what you're going to open. So there is a certain skill to, you know, building a deck from what you have opened and being able to sort out what's going to work and what's not. People like it because you feel like you're on an even keel with everybody else. You know, so you're not going to turn up and get absolutely destroyed by people who have spent £300-500 building their perfectly crafted custom deck designed to kick you. You know, you've got just as much chance of opening the best things of the day as anybody else. So yeah, people enjoy that aspect of it, and just the fact you're getting your hands on it early has that kind of extra kick to it, because they start bringing out the spoilers, they start showing you the cards from the set a few weeks before the set comes out. So by the time you get to pre-release, people already know the cards they want to try and find. They know the combos they want to try and play. They know what they're hoping to open. And then you're putting boxes into their hands a whole week ahead of time. Just kind of adds and builds to that excitement. And it is one of, if not probably the biggest gathering of people in the Magic community is when you run a pre-release. Because as James said, you get people coming out of the woodwork who only play in those type of events. They don't go away and build a deck and come back every week. But if you run 2 or 3 or 4 pre-releases, they'll get in on every one because they love that type of play. And that's one of the big strengths of Magic is the variety of formats that there are available to play in. So you can always find things that work for you. You know.
Yeah. So this, I mean, it's to be a bit cynical about it, it's a pretty solid marketing technique, isn't it? They realize it's like, you know, what the best Magic experience you can have to a lot of people is exactly when we bring out the new stuff. You got to get in on it then. You need to get in there, buy a load of cards before everyone's got a load of cards, and that'll be the fairest and most balanced moment. Is when you buy all the new stuff. Like, just being a little bit cynical there.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely know what they're doing, you know.
Yeah,
it's also one of the cheaper things to do, though. I think that's partly why people come out of the woodwork for it, because it's a £20 to £25 investment to have a whole day of gaming when people haven't worked out what everything is yet. Like, no one's going to absolutely smash you; they'll just do better. Yeah. You can get good at pre-release. It just doesn't come around often enough for people to get really good at pre-release.
And the other part of this as well, of course, is the cycling of the cards, right? And this is why new releases are important, because it effectively. So how does that work, Pete? If I go into my attic and find a Magic cards that I had in the mid-90s, I can't turn up at an event and play with them.
That's where the different formats of Magic come into it. So when you're talking about cards rotating out, that's where you're talking about the format that everybody calls standard, and that without going into too much boring detail, that equates to pretty much everything printed in the last 2 years. And then as new sets come out, they get added, and then we hit a certain point in September where everything except the most recent sets all disappear, and you go back to a very narrow pool of cards that you can play. And then over the next 2 years, the more sets get added on again and again, and then they all move. So you have this big growing pool that then all disappears, and you start over after sort of 18 to 24 months. So yeah, odds are
really interesting position with that sort of standard format at the moment as well. Because if you would have asked me like 2 years ago, what is Magic? What is the format that people play? I would have said, oh, it's standard and it's this. Whereas I don't think I'd say that anymore. I don't think standard is the format that it used to be. And I think I'd struggle to say what the format is. I think if I was to say to somebody like, what is most commonly played, I'd say we'll play Commander and you'll get more games. But I don't think I'd call that like the game. It's still kind of a side game.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I think it's a difficult one at this point because there are so many different formats. And yeah, there's definitely not a kind of primary format anymore. From Wizards of the Coast perspective, they say that their data shows that most people learn how to play Magic by playing Commander format with their friends now, which is why there's been such an explosion of Commander products in the last couple of years. Even to just literally earlier this week, the starter Commander decks were brought out, which are aimed at brand new players.
So good.
Nice and cheap and perfect to learn with, because they've recognized that with the advent of their online game of Magic Arena, where you can just go on your laptop or your tablet, whatever, and play it, that there's not that want not such a huge want anymore for people to get together in a game store and play that rotating format. Every couple of months a new set comes out, you've got to spend more money, you've got to change your deck again, you're constantly trying to find that competitive edge, and that just doesn't appeal to an awful lot of people like it used to.
Especially when they, as a company as well, are like big tournaments are being run on Arena rather than on paper and things like that. So they're pushing the, like, if you want to be super competitive, do it on Arena. If you want to play a casual game, then play a casual game. And I think you'd agree with me, Pete, we're paper players to the greatest extent. So
absolutely. I mean, as much as I love Magic, I have never even installed Arena on anything. If I'm going to play Magic, it's going to be at a table with people face to face, getting that interaction, because you can't replicate that on a screen. No, you just can't.
But play. I just play the Arena now because I can get home from finished work and I can turn it on. There's a daily challenge and a few other bits. You click a button and within 30 seconds you're connected with another player, and you can play all of the different versions as well. You've got a ranked standard on there. That's the one I'm working through at the moment, trying to get up the rankings. But there's so many different deck builders on there, and you can invest in buying stuff through the app, but you can still build quite a good without buying any of the add-ons. But I don't think I'd go back to playing the card game anymore.
No, but they're like the convenient and sort of gamified version of it that you're playing. You're enjoying just as it is.
Okay.
Yeah, because a friend of mine, we tried Warhammer Champions. He'd never played Magic or any games, and it's an okay system, but there's not enough cards. No, their system of cards just didn't work, so they're all set up on the top shelf now.
For everyone, I think, and I'm sure it's played at all anymore.
Yeah, I think people, all of the gaming companies, can see what Magic is, right? I mean, Magic the Gathering is absolutely enormous, and those of us that have been around a long time, and we saw it appear, and it was appear in the local shops, and over the space of a couple of years, it was really by the time you'd hit 4th edition, I think, was when the traditional war games clubs were starting to look very, very different, because the people who had ranks of 15 mil glossy Napoleonic figures and old WRG suddenly had a whole bunch of people coming in on a Sunday to play Magic tournaments, and they were the same people. And then in the shops, these ranks of Grenadier single figures that you bought every time you visited was slowly disappearing and being replaced by booster packs for Magic. That same kind of, every time I go in the shop, I buy something, just for a few quid. The single fantasy miniature died because Magic took that purchase point, I think. Which made me really hostile to it in the early days, because I could see what it was kind of doing. But I see why all the other games try and have a go at making a collectible card game, because there's so much money. So for anyone that didn't catch it, you were just talking about you said about Arena. That is their proprietary app, or is that an actual playable video game that they run tournaments on?
Yes. Yeah.
it's a playable video game.
Yeah.
Right.
It's an app that simulates everything that's play with Magic digitally, but you're still playing against other real people who are also playing. But you don't get the face-to-face. You might get a little bit of chat with some preset, good game. Or your turn or something. Preset things you can choose.
Good game.
But it takes,
good game.
Yeah,
good game.
It does bring it down to that base level of I play my things and it's just replicating it on the screen.
Right. Okay, I better catch up with the chat. Johnny B says, what is your favorite Magic setup artwork? Mine is Kamigawa. I don't even know whether that's a serious comment or not from John.
That's a serious comment.
Yeah.
Well done, John.
Kamigawa's a good set, so I can appreciate that.
It's a question, Pete.
Yeah, genuine question.
I'm thinking that's no one's ever asked what my favorite set. I have to say I really liked Battle for Zendikar, mostly because it was the first set where they did the expedition lands. So suddenly, out of nowhere, there were these lottery ticket cards that at random in the booster packs, you could suddenly find this full art foil, beautiful, unique artwork land card. That had never been done in the game before. No one had ever seen these before, and opening one of them was just it was such a thrill. I had people cracking multiple boxes trying to pull one of these things, and I'm definitely guilty of that. I opened way more of that product than I should have, and that was at a time when that was playable in standard, and standard was huge, so everybody was doing it. Everybody wanted those packs. Everybody wanted that set. It was the start of a really good run for the game around there. So I have extremely fond memories of that set. Even just the card artwork and the set symbol, everything about it just really resonated with me. To the extent where I took my deck and made every single land in the deck those full art foil ones at a ridiculous cost that we won't talk about.
Right. It's interesting you say about the kind of, it was really good for the game, because these these things they have peaks and troughs, right?
Absolutely.
The game, you know, and as you said, if you were having this conversation 10 years ago, you'd say standard was the format. You're saying today you're not really sure what the big face-to-face format is. Maybe it's Commander, and we'll talk about Commander in a minute, I think. But I do want to get through the questions, but you know, you're seeing it for those that watch. You've seen it in Warhammer today. Is that, you know, at 7th edition, it was at a bit of a low point. At 8th edition was probably a real peak for it in terms of its history. The tail end of 9th edition, where we are now, the game isn't being played nearly so much, you know. And I think for those of us that hate the fact that games, you know, build in their own obsolescence, well, I think they kind of need to, because if you look at games that don't get refreshed, that don't have those cycles, they just die.
Yeah.
You know,
I think they've always got to have a reason to have you go for the new thing. You know, whether it's, you know, it's got a better price tag, or it's got more powerful things in the set, it's got something that hasn't been done before. They've got to always give you that hook to make you go, I'm going to hand over my hard-earned cash because I need this to continue playing the hobby that I love. Like you say, if they don't give you that,
they do sometimes resurrect an old classic card and make it legal again, don't they? So you can recycle some of your older cards.
Absolutely. They've started doing that. I don't know if they've been doing it more recently. To me, it feels like they've.
It feels like it. Recently. Yeah, they're playing on the nostalgia a lot more recently. They're certainly bigging up the old cards quite a lot.
Yeah. I mean, this set here, like the two posters behind me, the red and green one, this Brothers War set was basically, you know, nostalgia set completely for older Magic players.
Yeah, it was old cards printed in the old border as well, like the really old 94
brown borders for the artifacts. All these things just designed to evoke that nostalgia, to make people go, I need to get my hands on this because it reminds me of childhood, or it reminds me of when I started playing the game.
I saw that because playing that on the app, I've got the brother sets and that, and seeing cards. I remember that one. You know. Yeah.
So, Shackles and Sprues, if you wait a week after the pre-release, do you get the cards any cheaper? The pre-release is actually the cheap bit, isn't it?
It's pretty good budget.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, in terms of money, the pre-release is a good way, because what you're getting is value for money most of the time, because you're getting 6 boosters plus a promo plus a dice, including the kit for your set. Magic's a funny one, because when pre-release rolls around and everybody starts first opening the cards, the secondary market, you know, buying and selling of just single individual cards, prices can go all over the place, because Wizards, the people who make Magic, don't do anything with the secondary market. They'll barely even acknowledge it. So price is almost entirely set by players and companies who are selling these cards. So depending on how desirable a card might be, can massively affect its price. So something might look like everybody's going to want it. So on pre-release weekend, people are exchanging, you know, this card for £20, £30, £40 each. And within a couple of weeks, it's been discovered actually it doesn't really do much in most formats, and it's tanked down to, you know, £5, £6, £7. But people are buying.
As I said pre-show, I remember opening and getting a foil Gaia's Cradle, and that was a very lucrative resale.
Yeah. I mean, some cards just go ever more value, you know. Even if they get reprinted, it's been so long since the original version. The border will be different now. The art will be different because the license has expired, or whatever it might be. You know, it doesn't necessarily hurt the value of it. But no, it just waiting to acquire cards later on. It's a toss of a coin as to whether you get them cheaper or not. It almost works like a stock market. It's bizarre as that sounds. The Magic Singles market is almost like a stock market. You go on sites like Card Market to look at card prices, and they literally have a graph of, like, you know, price history, like, you know, like bar charts for stocks and shares and stuff. It can go all over the shop.
Which is why it's legally quite difficult for Wizards of the Coast to acknowledge a secondary market, because that shows that there's some random chance within a pack, and that starts getting into sort of like you're paying money for random chance to maybe get more money territory.
And the whole loot box issue that was a few years ago for games like Overwatch and that, you know, all that.
Definitely
gambling,
right?
Because you don't know what you're getting.
Yeah.
100% it's gambling, clearly.
Yeah. But you don't need a gambling license to sell it in a hobby shop. Bob Edwards says, I think this is quite a complex answer that you kind of touched on. Is a deck from 10 years ago still competitors are like 40k worth of no use? So I would suggest the deck isn't competitive because there isn't a format that deck's going to fit into that it's going to be as good. A 10-year-old card will not be as powerful as a card printed today. There's definitely power creep, right? What you get for 2 mana has increased over the years. But James talked before the show about the format Commander and others where, far more cards are legal. Those cards are still likely to be able to build you a good deck for one of those formats, right, Pete?
Yeah, absolutely. And you might have older cards that are not playable in any format other than Commander, but are so good in that format, they're carrying a price tag because, not only were they printed 10 years ago, they've not been printed since, but they've become a staple included in a deck of that color. So there's almost not enough of them to go around. So suddenly they become valuable. But no, absolutely, you're right. Chances are anything that was built 10 years ago now is either going to be not legal for play or it will be laughable to try and play it against stuff that's around now. But again, that's why the many different formats exist.
Some of your cards might have been banned.
Yeah. But the deck is garbage anyway, but some amount of banned cards as well. Like, it feels like
you're absolutely right about the power creep as well.
Yeah,
because you look back, look back at the early days of Magic, and like your big flashy finishing creature would have cost you, like 5 lands to play it, and it would have flying, and that would be amazing that it was a creature that had flying, And now you can spit these things out for 3 lands and less that have got way more power than anything from 10 years ago. So the power creep is enormous. And that's why they keep putting these hooks in these new sets, like the full art foil lands and the alternate art planeswalkers, the Japanese language planeswalkers, whatever it might be, because they've reached a point now where they've got to have something more than just the normal cards in the set to hook you in. Because people are looking at it, and because Commander is so popular, whenever a new set comes out, everybody's sort of lens for looking at the set is to go, right, that could go in my Commander deck, that could go in my Commander deck, that's all trash because nobody plays standard anyway. And so it's affecting the way they even make their products now, because some things are so obviously geared towards these non-competitive formats, even though it's coming out in the set that's meant to be the competitive competitive set for this quarter of the year.
I'm way behind with the chat, like 15 minutes behind also. So Nick from Team Clueless Games says, what do you think about Magic dipping into other games to make decks like 40k Commander or the D&D set? Wooly Mike, 1 sentence.
D&D, when I saw it, intrigued me, and I was contemplating going back in to have a look at the D&D set. So it might pull me back in.
James, 1 sentence.
I think it's fantastic. I play these other games anyway. I've got absolutely no complaints about it. The problem with it at the moment is that sometimes when they print something, they only print it in that version, and there are going to be people who aren't happy about it being only that version, which is already happening, especially with the Warhammer stuff. So if they could be a bit more careful about having these available in like a that thing so that everyone can have fun, that would be nice.
There's at least 4 semicolons in that sentence, but
there were, but it was
Pete.
I like it as long as they keep it to its own discrete product.
Yeah,
so the Warhammer Commander decks is fine, but just randomly shoving Transformers into a standard set like Brothers War, why are the cards in there? They're nothing to do with the story of that set.
In your okay.
It's taking up a card space in a booster pack that you would rather was something else.
Yeah.
Okay, gamers look the same worldwide. These pictures be for local events out here, right down to the soft drinks. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Goat beards or ponytails, I think, are the
shackles and sprues. What about the old ones? I think we touched about that because I wanted to get to this one from John. And again, because we're still way behind with the chat. What the hell is Commander format? So tell us in brief. Commander format, if you can, Pete.
In a nutshell, Commander is 99 cards in a deck, but every card other than your basic lands has to be a one-of unique card with a unique name. So you're probably going to have about 35 to 40 lands and 60-ish completely unique one-of cards. And then you've got one special card, which is your legendary creature, which is your commander, that sits outside of your deck, and you can play that from its own zone to the battlefield anytime that you can. If it dies or gets removed, it goes back to that zone, so your commander card is always available to you. And the idea is that the deck you've built is based around the specific ability of that commander creature. So it might be artifact based, it might be tap and untap based, it might be flash based, whatever it might be. It's themed around that commander. And the initial idea of the format was that it provides you more semi-randomized gameplay, because rather than having 60 cards where you've got 4 of this thing, 4 of that thing, 4 of that thing, because you've got one-ofs and you're just randomly what you're drawing into, it's meant to be, oh, what funky stuff's going to happen in this game. And that was the initial kind of approach to it.
And James, would I be right in saying this is very commonly the club game, the multiplayer, the 6 people playing a game with rules about who you can attack, and it's a longer format, more casual game, slower pace.
Yeah, for sure. It's basically the only format I play because it's casual. You only need 1 of every card. It's really easy to get into. Basically, everybody plays it, and you can just have fun with it rather than feeling like there's no competition to it except friendly competition.
And the games are not over in 5 minutes sometimes.
Oh God, no, they're not over in 5 hours sometimes.
Many years ago, my stepson and a friend of my daughter's led me down the path of the other card games. Yu-Gi-Oh! Still have a ton in the garage. I wonder if I should try and cash them in or out. So if you are someone who, like me, had played Magic the Gathering years and years ago, 2 things I would say that you need to know is, one is there are apps which will tell you exactly what anything is worth, and every modern Magic player has that app on their phone. So what I did once down at the shop when it was still running in Luton is I took my old cards, I had some of the experts like, look through, can you take out anything that's worth anything, and we'll deal with that separately, and then just left the rest in there with the little jars and honesty box. And if anybody wants any of this, so you can separate the wheat out from the chaff by relying on a local expert, but the rest is landfill, really. A lot of it is landfill.
About 100 cards were good and 1,000 cards were landfill, but you still made a fair bit on the ones that were.
Which is what's great about Commander, because you can use the landfill.
So what would you say is one of the apps that's most commonly used there, Pete, for checking card values?
It's not actually an app, but the website Magic Card Market. Just Card Market. Just put Card Market into Google because they cover every game, every card game. But
you hold your camera over it and it tells you what the card is.
That one can't do that. You have to look search by the name or by the serial. There are other apps that will do it. TCG Player has an app that will do it. Delver Lens.
Lens is the one
is the most popular one I think that people use. There are loads. There's loads of card scanning apps. Whether you're on iPhone or whatever brand you've got, go into your apps store. Just look for TCG apps or card game apps, anything like that. There are so many. Loads of them do hook into things like TCG Player and Card Market to get the pricing from anyway. So even if you're using an app, you're still getting the pricing of it from the same source as anybody who's just using the website. But it will take you a long time. People sort of go, I see posts online all the time. Oh, I've just found like 3,000 cards. Is there a quick way that I can scan each individual card?
I think which is why
a movie on, because that's the only way to do it.
But that's why you take them to somebody who knows what they're doing, who will instantly recognize the ones that are of value.
Yeah. If you've got a local shop, you've got someone like me who's well versed in that particular game, then they'll be able to very quickly just go, this, and this. These are the ones we might want to look at. These are all the ones I can tell you guaranteed. Just put them in the bin.
Yu-Gi-Oh is an interesting one as well because it's non-rotating. It never rotates. So even those ancient cards might still be commonly used now.
Absolutely. Yeah. And because it doesn't rotate, you might have things from ages ago that have been absolutely worthless for the last 10 years. And suddenly they print something this year that interacts with it and the price goes woof, because suddenly that card becomes relevant after a decade of being around.
So Nick's hit one there. I think for me, I feel a similar way. I stopped buying Magic cards long ago. Me and my friends would get our old decks out and still play with them. I think the thing with that is, again, this edition thing is if you all bought them around the same time, then they're going to be comparable. But if my old Magic cards are 5 years younger than your old Magic cards, then I'm playing with quite a big advantage.
Unless it's Kamigawa. Unless it's Johnny's favorite, at which point it was terrible.
It's starting to sound like Games Workshop marketing. Yeah, I certainly think that there's a bit of that. Have our own game modes that we play. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Dollars, euros, and quids. What's a format, says Shackles and Sprues? Different restrictions on the way you play the same game. So
Right, so
maybe you
can
can
do a very quick rundown of what the formats are.
I'll take a while. There's a lot of them, right? Let's you talked about Commander because these are old comments now.
Okay.
We're talking about Commander there. So you must have said on tap somewhere in there. Sounds like scratch cards. We were talking about that. Black Lotus, Johnny B mentioned. That's the like. If you've heard anything about Magic, it's the Black Lotus is worth a fortune, right?
Like that is the holy grail of owning a card. Is if you're collecting Magic in any way, that's the one you want to try and get eventually.
Most expensive card sale in history, still, I think, $800,000. Yeah.
Could you just buy a start set and play? How much would a start set be? So this was as I was listening myself as we were going through. The two things there is one is that like the like Pete mentioned earlier with the pre-release. That's one of the reasons that people do that, isn't it? Is you don't have to keep buying. You can get in on the pre-release. You'll have a period when people don't have loads of cards where you can still compete because everybody's got the same number on that day. And they come around every couple months. So if you're a kind of semi-casual player. But the other was those proprietary Commander decks you mentioned. Now, are they intended to be not collectible? They're one and done.
Yeah.
You play this deck.
Yeah, literally, they're designed to just come out the box and you play. And the range that they have released, I say they came out Friday last week. The 5 that they've released are geared specifically towards brand new players who might not even know how to play the game yet. As I said, Wizards are saying now that playing Commander is the way most people are learning how to play. So they've designed these decks specifically to enable new players to get a handle on the rules as easily as possible. Even to the extent where they haven't printed keywords on the cards. They just print full-on explanations of what was said. They don't use any...
Which they used to do when I played. It said first strike and then it told you what it did.
Yeah. They've kind of even gone a step further than that now. Some of these things don't even have the words like first strike on them. You just get a block of text explaining to you in plain English exactly what this thing does.
Right.
And they've made the price point nice as well. Because they're £20 for a 100 card deck. Which is
a pretty decent one too. It's not bad. You'll keep up.
Yeah, they are. Which I think is about as good a price point for any Magic product as I've seen for a while. Particularly as costs of everything have been escalating.
Yeah.
Don't they sometimes do it where there's a starter box with 2 matched opposite decks? You buy a box and then you give the other deck to a friend. Yeah. And you can jump in and play match games as well.
Periodically they come around and really handily, not to be confused with anything, though they call those now the arena starter decks. So
nice.
Even though it's Paper Magic, not arena, which is the app. But that's what they call them. And exactly. You get 2 decks, you get a set of instructions inside, a little papery play mat that shows you where to put different things in zones of the game. And that is the ultimate. There's 2 people, neither of us know how to play. Let's get a product and teach ourselves how to play.
It's like £8 as well, isn't it? It's dumb low price.
Yeah.
I think one that I'm always interested in, and they're still working on it, is called Game Night, which is it's 5 decks of each of the different colors, and you just play them against each other. And it's designed to be like a board game, basically, but you're playing Magic.
Yeah, and that's what people dubbed it. It was the Magic's version of a board game, essentially, because it never rotates, it never changes. You don't make any changes to the decks yourself. There's no customization. You just pick one of the 5. Which one are you going to do? And then I think one of them, it might have been the xxxxxxxxxxxx set, I think, where they first did it. It even came with like hexagonal tiles, like you would explore a board while you played. They really tried to hybridize and gently ease people in. If you're a prolific board gamer, hey, check this out, because it uses some Magic cards and some board gaming rules, and then you can kind of find your way into a full-on Magic game after that. So they have tried over the years so many different things to capture all these different audiences and try and give people an easier into the game rather than just that discrete, you have to learn our rules and that's it. They've really tried to broaden it out to everybody.
The non-competitive version again we've talked about. So one you talked about is Commander, which you talked about a lot. It's a 100-card deck. Every card is unique, and you have a special hero that you can bring in repeatedly, no matter how many times he dies.
Yeah.
Okay. Now another format that people reference from time to time, which is cheap but for a different reason, is one called Pauper. So tell me about Pauper.
I love Pauper. So Pauper is you can only play cards that have been printed at the common level. So Magic cards have different rarities based on the color of the symbol on the card. So you've got common, uncommon, rare, and mythic. And commons, by fact of that's what they are called, are the ones that tend to be dirt cheap, because in every pack of 15 cards you get somewhere between 8 and 10, 12 of them, depending on the content of the set that you're opening. And it's so the idea of the format was to be as budget friendly as possible, because you can build a fully competitive top tier deck for something like 30, 40 pounds, maybe 50 if you're edging towards the real top end of the list. It doesn't rotate, but every set that comes out, you've got the potential for things to be added to it, because there's the bulk of any set is made up of commons, because you've got this small selection of rares and mythics, and then commons just packing out the set. So it doesn't tend to change too often, because it uses cards from the entire history of Magic. It has its own ban list, but there's no sort of oldest set, I think, that it goes back to. So most of the decks are pretty well set. You can literally just go onto Google and put something like Pauper top decks, and it will just give you kind of the 15 or 20 best decks for the format that are known to be the best decks, because they're so well played and so tested. And you can just kind of copy paste that into something like Magic Madhouse and click buy, and you've got an entire deck for 30 or 40 quid. And it's a really good and powerful format as well, despite the fact that most of the cards are old and most of the cards can only be a common level. It actually does really strong things. I know when I first talk, when people first hear about it, they just think, oh, I can just take a whole bunch of that chaff that I opened from that box and just throw a bunch of cards together, and there I've got a Pauper deck. But actually, say that the cards that you need are very specific, because they're very good. They're just nice and cheap at the same time.
Great Parameter says, do you feel the art and lore largely irrelevant to most players, and the competitive side is the main driver? It's a really funny one, that, isn't it? Because I find with a lot of gamers and gaming is people don't appreciate it, but dislike its absence, if that makes sense. And I think people don't necessarily, like open a new rule book and say, oh, look at the beautiful artwork in this new rule book. But 20 years later, they do remember the front cover of that book, with a degree of perfection. I think with the Magic art, certainly when I played, I didn't really notice it, but I knew that it wasn't terrible. Although some of it was, which stood out.
They used to the binders you get that you can store cards in. They used to put all of the commons and that. They used to put the really good artwork in there and make it like a desktop, a coffee table book, because some of it was really, really good.
Yeah. I know people have different opinions on this. So somebody I play with hates it. Like they don't like foils, they don't like the different arts and that kind of thing. They're just playing it because it's game pieces. Whereas I love it. Like I like the full art ones. They're more expensive, and that's nothing to do with it. I just like looking at it as a piece of art as well as looking at it as a deck. So there's different people for different things.
And sometimes somebody put a card down and you don't need to read it. You can just, as soon as you see the picture, you know you're in trouble.
So that's a card with a frame. It's got a frame all the way around the outside of it, the black border, whereas a borderless card doesn't have that. And generally,
that's what you meant by full art. It's borderless.
Yeah. So it means that it ends up going further out to the edge. And I don't know, personally, I like it.
Right. Okay. What's an Ian? I don't know.
No, Lan.
Oh, a land.
A land. What's a land? A land. Oh, yeah, that's
one of those.
Magic.
Anyway, next question.
There's just what they've been up to. It's making 40k sound simple. Well, so I as someone who used to and hung around in shops where lots of other people play Magic, I don't think Magic is that complicated a game, but it sure as hell seems like it to an outsider because it's got all of this depth, right? If you went into a shop tomorrow and played, and people are thinking about getting into it, they give out like free decks for you to learn to play with, don't they? Like 30-card trial decks.
Used to, yeah. I'm not sure they do anymore.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's not the case anymore. But you will find a lot of local shops, at least ones that I know of, will have some decks sleeved up, ready to loan out that you can use to play.
And if you just played it, you would quite quickly pick it up. All right, but hearing about it when you haven't played it, the actual mechanics of it are fairly straightforward. And because there are probably millions of cards at this point, certainly tens of thousands of them, there is a lot to do with the interaction. The game can get quite complicated about exactly which thing happens, because you can interrupt each other's actions because it's a card game. That stuff can get quite complicated, but it's going to be rare until you're playing it at quite a senior level. And it's quite unlikely that you're not playing with someone who really knows how that goes if you're playing in a club or a store.
Yeah, I'd kind of compare it to 40k 7th, where there's a lot of keywords and there's a lot of little rules interactions that you sort of have to get your head around. But once you've got your head around them, you sort of get it to a great extent. So even when something new is introduced to you, you're just sort of adding it to a textbook of things that you already understand, rather than having to learn the game all over again when a new mechanic is introduced.
It's the same with combinations, isn't it? You play a certain card, you play a second card, that makes the first card do something. And then a third card gets played, and then you end up with these on-running combinations.
Yeah.
And it's not just about playing Snap. You're playing Ace or Fake or whatever.
You're playing every evolving rule set as the game goes forward. Yeah. But I think one of the things that Magic does particularly, more so than most other games, is explaining very well on the cards what exactly they do. And there's a famous thing in the Magic playing world of reading the card explains the card. But for most of the time, that is the case. Certainly compared to some other games, where you read translated from other languages, whatever, you read the card, you just think, oh, what on earth? You have to get your head really around it. Magic does tend to be quite self-explanatory once you've got the basic rule set under your belt.
Mitha says he made full decks and creatures because of the artwork that he liked. Yeah.
This deck that's on my table is a mission in finding all the weird alternate arts and all the full arts and things like that. It's just it's a collector's thing as well. It's a good deck. Like, there's cards in there that are there because they're good, and there's no version like that. But I've also actively made it worse because I preferred the art on another card at times. So yeah.
In the early days, Magic the Gathering Dragons were overcosted and underwhelming, but I loved the art. It's had a full deck of legless dragons. Worms.
Oh, the green worm deck. I remember that one.
Yeah, the green worm. Yeah. Right. We're coming quite close to the end. So if you're tempted to have a look at it, but it is a deep pool that you're putting a foot into. Those pre-built commander decks sounded like a good place to start, especially if you're interested from another game, and the art might be more appealing to you for those that want to. So Pete, just remind these beautiful people, if they want to come to one of your gaming days, either Magic or down the church on a Sunday, where will they find out more information?
Okay, so for information about all of the events that we have upcoming, the best place to go is to our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Geekster Gaming. That has everything that's going to be coming up, and that's where all of the updates go. There's also stuff that goes on Instagram as well, but Facebook is our main hub, and that's where I kind of try and prolifically post all of the things that we're going to be doing.
And so it's in St. Thomas's Church. No, not St. Thomas's, the other ones. St. Michael's, is it? St. Anne's? What's the church called? Pete? Oh, is Pete frozen up?
Oh, everything kind of went a little sideways there. So the Saturday events are at St. Christopher's Church on
there we go
in Luton.
Yeah.
The next one of those is Saturday this week, which is the last one this year.
And your Thursday night Magic is
Thursday nights. Well, Thursday nights is again anything. That's in the Hat Factory here in Luton Town Centre. That's from about 5 o'clock onwards.
Lost him again.
And that's for
in the last 2 minutes.
Another free space for anyone to use.
Nice.
And you people can just turn up, right?
Yep. There's no need to book. There's no need to sign up or anything. You can literally just stroll on in and come and say hi, and we'll get you into something.
If someone turns up at one of your events and says, "Oh, hi, Pete, I saw you on Modeling for Advantage," you will show them how to play Magic, right?
Absolutely, I will. Of course, with as much free tea and coffee as they can drink.
there we go. From us over the next few weeks, we have Wally Mike is coming down at the weekend, frost permitting and all that kind of stuff. And we will get the review done for the new Gettysburg set. That's what that is. The new American Civil War.
I've been doing my research.
And the Zouaves.
Dangerous.
The new thing from Bolt Action. I was planning to be seeing John tomorrow to unbox the new Red Dawn thing from Team Yankee, but it sounds like he's pushing snot out of his bumhole, so that may not happen. That was very much my plan for this week. If you haven't seen it in our Bolt Action campaign, we just played our first game of Cruel Seas, and it's actually not a bad little game. The motorboat game, a phrase that John found quite hilarious because it doesn't just mean driving a motorboat. James is shaking his head there, demonstrating. Yeah. Okay. We will be having our Christmas quiz on the 23rd, I think it is, which is the Friday just before Christmas. We'll live show for that. Do tune in. If you want to submit questions for the quiz, submit them in batches of 5 to modelingforadvantage@gmail.com, or there's a contact us thing on the website, modelingforadvantage.co.uk. 5 questions at a time, multiple choice A, B, or C, in the hope that we can get some of it right. You need to get them in really by the end of this week, because Mrs. Kaiser has to type. I don't see the questions. She sees the questions, so I can actually take part in the quiz. It was fun last time. We proved that we're all morons that don't know anything about history, wargaming, or military movies. Yeah, every person said, "Yeah, I thought my questions were really easy." Like, well, no one else can get them. And I'm hoping that it will be as stupid as that again. So I'll get a Christmas schedule up for you soon, but that will be the 23rd. We might, as I say, then next week should be Gettysburg, and hopefully the Battlefront Team Yankee Red Dawn stuff. Might have to do that on Saturday as well, Mike, when you get here, if John's not able to come tomorrow. Well, that's about it from us, guys. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.